Hello, my name is Amara Hark-Weber, and welcome to my workshop for the American Craft Council in my studio series. I am a shoemaker in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I make shoes from start to finish, mostly totally custom. So starting out with a last, going through to the upper, and then finally to a finished shoe. So let me show you around the workshop. So coming into the workshop, the first thing you see is raw materials. These are sides of leather. This is used for soling, and then a machine or a cutting device, a hand crank cutting device, and a leather splitter. Leather for insole and some extra alligator skin, and then leathers that I keep in stock, just kind of that I use frequently. And then turning around to the left, you'll see the area that I use for cutting. I make all of my own patterns, so every pair is different and every pair of patterns is different. So this is what's done there. Those are the samples for Craft Week. And then here are just some standard samples that I use as references. Upcoming client work is on the right there. And then entering into the other part of the workshop, here's a sewing and skiving station, kind of being disguised by plants and shoes right now. Some larger sewing machines used for sewing outsoles onto the uppers. My business station and my lasting station. So I spend a lot of time sitting in this chair, doing lasting, finishing, bottoming. All of the parts that kind of hold the shoe together are done here. I have a little downdraft box. Hanging up on the board are all different hand tools that are used for different parts of the process. A lot of different nails, some uppers in progress. That's me. Hello. And then finally, my finishing machine. And so this is a large sanding machine. All right. So I have a list of questions here that were submitted by folks online. And so I thought I'd just answer them in the order in which they were received. The first one is, how do you help shoes to last a long time? And do handmade shoes last longer than store-bought shoes? So the first thing you can do for shoe maintenance is just to be aware of how you're wearing them. If you notice that your heel is wearing, it might be time for some maintenance. If the leather looks dry or cracked, it might be time for some maintenance. And by maintenance, it could be anything from conditioning the leather, so like putting lotion on the leather, like if your skin gets dry, the same kind of thing, to bringing your shoes into a shoe repair shop to have a new bottom rand of the heel put on. Do handmade shoes last longer than store-bought shoes, and why or why not? That's a good question. It depends on the shoes. So it depends on who made the handmade shoes, what type of store-bought shoes, how they're being worn, for what purpose they're being worn, and how they're being maintained. So how did you find your passion with shoemaking, and did you find a muse, or how do you find a muse? Well, shoemaking kind of found me. I started about 10 years ago when I was getting my MFA at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, and I continued on from there. And as for a muse, I don't know if I necessarily have a muse, but when I think of a muse, I think of inspiration, and where I get inspiration from is everywhere. I read a lot, I listen to a lot of books, I spend a lot of time outside. Those are all ideas and visual aspects that kind of keep me intrigued by the world. And I think that being interested in the world will make you a good crafts person and keep the ideas flowing. How did you start your shop? What did you spend on startup? And how did the first space that you worked in affect the work you did, and what did it teach you? All right, so how did I set up my workshop? And the first space, well, this is still actually the first space that I've ever been in. I've been here the entire time that I've been making shoes, and it's in the basement of a building that is owned by my mom, who is a paper maker. The startup cost is really, that's a hard question to answer because it's taken me until I mean, my shop is well equipped now and I feel super lucky to have it, but it's taken me the entirety up until like last month to accumulate all of this stuff and to figure out what I needed and where I can find it. So when I first started, I actually bought out an old shoe repair shop, and that's what got me going. I got this big finishing machine and the curved needle machine that's behind me back there. And that is what I started with, and a sewing machine. And so over the years, it's kind of developed, and what I learned, what I need after I needed it, and usually trying to problem solve as I went. And what did I spend? I don't know how much money I spent. A lot of money. Shoemaking isn't cheap. The tools are hard to find. If you're talking about like how much money I've spent, it would be, I don't even know. And how much time I've spent, that is incalculable. The next question is, do you make extra wide shoes for women? I totally do. Up until this very Craft Council show, I have only made custom shoes for individual feet. So the process starts by measuring a foot and coming up with an idea with the person who will be wearing the shoes, and then I build the shoes. So the next question is, do you only wear your own shoes? Well, yeah, I do, because they're the most comfortable and they fit my feet really well. What are the biggest hurdles that you faced during the pandemic, and how can we support you and your professional goals? That's a really good question. I think that the pandemic has changed the way that many creative people and many people, just all people, have thought about what they do and why they do it, and I'm no different. The biggest hurdle has been meeting with people to measure their feet, but also too, business has been slow, and people aren't going out, so they don't need shoes for the office, they don't need shoes for an event. The best thing you can do, I think, generally, not just during pandemic times, is to support your community by supporting small businesses, and it doesn't get any smaller than a craftsman's workshop. So that's what I got.